Well, it's been a while since I've posted anything on this YouTube channel, and that's primarily, well, number one, I've been really busy, and number two, I've just had a lot of projects that were either half done or 3/4 done, or, you know, but I haven't had anything that I was doing from scratch at that time. They sort of moved through in waves in my shop. So I thought the first one that I would do would be a really juicy, let's restore it from scratch, all no holds barred kind of a thing, on some kind of a really unusual guitar. So what shows up at my doorstep but this really nice 68 Rickenbacker 4005 Jetglo double bound. Only 2 owners. The last owners owned it for something like 41 years. And it was recently sold to a doctor in San Diego. Hi Scott, it's a shout out to you. And we're doing a complete restoration on it, with every last assembly taken apart, the neck reset if it's necessary, and I haven't taken any measurements yet. Parts restored back to brand new, all new hardware. We're going to replate the very rare tailpiece and probably rebind the body because the binding is showing some wear and some chips and stuff. And we'll use as much of that original fretboard as we can. And I thought right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it sort of piece by piece here, and we'll discuss what I've found and what the plans are for each area of the bass. As you can see, it's in real nice condition. Now, the previous owner was a really excellent semi-professional bass player who used this as a working instrument. So it's been modified a little bit over the years, nothing that's not reversible, and it's been taken care of in terms of it's always been well set up, and it's always been strung, and it's been regularly played, by no means neglected. On the other hand, it shows normal wear and tear for an instrument that was made in 1968. You know, what is that, 43 years now? 44 years. So first we're going to talk about, I think, the headstock here. Classic Rickenbacker curlicue headstock, right? And it's got the usual damage that you find on older Rickenbacker basses because the headstock gets banged around. Remember, it's a long scale bass, so you'll generally find chipping like this. It's fairly normal. It's a little bit of chipping on the surface here too, and of course this is going to be stripped and sanded completely down to just perfectly smooth maple. You'll notice the tuners have been replaced. At first glance you see the elephant ears and you kind of go, oh, it's got old, you know, Rickenbacker type Schaller tuners on it. But in fact the tuners have been replaced with slightly more reliable, and I'll show you the backs of them in a second, with 1/2-inch posts, which meant that the original 10mm holes for the Schallers had to be opened up to 1/2 inch. So since we're going to be putting the original tuners back on, I'm going to be plugging those holes and re-drilling them, and of course the washers from the original tuners are going to cover over the joint where we drilled, so it'll be completely undetectable. Now the real damage to the headstock shows in back, where you can see that over the decades a number of different kinds of tuners have been fitted, and these tuners are installed by drilling out a 1/2-inch hole and then locating them with a single wood screw to keep them from rotating on the headstock. So I don't know, what are we looking at here? Something like 8 or 10 holes per tuner that are going to have to be filled, and I've got a way of not only filling them but making it so that they're not going to show with climatic temperature and humidity changes. I've got a little trick, and we'll get into that a little bit later when we start working on it. Now you can also see that the bass has never been refinished as far as I can see. This all looks factory original to me. There's usual amount of chips and dents and stuff in it, but nothing really serious. Unlike many old Rickenbacker basses, this one does not show any separation at the first fret. You know, some of the basses show a fretboard separation all the way down to like maybe fret 5, and it comes from tightening the truss rods too much with high tension strings. But this one's been fairly well taken care of. So there's a little bit maybe of separation here, but it's been glued, it's been touched up, and it's in pretty good shape. Also, we're going to be replacing that nut. As far as I can see, that's an original nut because the varnish, the conversion varnish, actually goes over it. But it's been modified and hogged out a little bit for different new strings, and then the grooves have been lined with some sort of an anti-rattle material. Looks like moleskin or something. So we've got some, funny things going on there. So we'll be doing a new nut. If the inserts will come up nice and clean and with no cracks, and so far they don't have any, when I refret it, then we'll keep the original late 60s crushed mother of pearl in resin inserts. Otherwise we'll recreate those, and if I recreate those, that'll be kind of a fun thing too. Now if you look at the neck binding, it's a little bit inconsistent, and if you feel it, you can really feel the inconsistency. It's a little bit lumpy and wavy. You can see a little bit of wear here in the very common A position. Nicely enough, there's no cracking where the neck heel meets the body. That's a very common place in Rickenbackers for it to crack if the neck's been overstressed. So that again is witness to the fact that it's a well taken care of instrument. Now you can also see that the binding is kind of a little bit nicked up and chipped, and it's also yellowed, and we're going to be redoing that. The bass has about 90% of its original parts. That's an original, very rare 4005 tailpiece. It looks like an R guitar tailpiece from a 360 or even a 480 or 481, but in fact the 4005 was the only one made with only 4 string slots cut in it. So those are as rare as hen's teeth. That's going to be replated. Original 4005 bridge with 4 aluminum alloy saddles. And that bridge, shell itself, the C-shaped channel, will be replated. We'll put some new fasteners in there, and probably use some new saddles, and fine-tune those so that everything fits and looks brand new. Probably get the original bridge plate replated. If you look carefully, you can see we've got 2 dissimilar toaster pickups, but I'm pretty sure they're the originals. What we got here is some finger wear through the paint into the maple. Unfortunately, it's not deep, so that's not going to be a problem to fix. And we've got a total of 6 unnecessary holes drilled in here. There's 5 down here for maybe another bridge that it had at one time. And there's one here, and gosh knows what that was for. I have no idea. It's in such a weird location. Anyway, we'll get all of that restored and cleaned up. The pickguard looks to be original, and if it cleans up nicely, we'll save it. Otherwise, we'll replace it. It's a simple piece of plastic. The base, the wiring harness we'll probably keep. We'll see some new knobs and possibly a new switch on there. Now, what's really unusual about this bass, it's the only 4005 I've ever seen that's fitted with a Rickenbacker harness, which is a stereo harness. But because it was originally a monaural bass, which means it's got that monaural jack plate with a single jack in it, okay, and remember on Rickenbackers the jack plate also carries the serial number. It's got a monaural jack plate, but at one point it was taken apart, fitted with a factory Rickenbacker harness, and of course, since we can't get another jack plate with that serial number, and that's an important piece, what they've done is they've put the other jack, the Rickenbacker jack, on the front of the bass in the pickguard. So there's a little bit of debate whether we're going to keep that or return it back to its original condition, which is a monaural bass, but we'll deal with that later. The tug bar looks to be, if it's not original, it's a perfect replica, and it's in the correct location. So that's going to stay as is. So what you're going to see is all the chrome and the hardware renewed, fresh paint, fresh binding, fresh frets. When I get everything stripped down on this, I am going to set it up on a surface plate, a granite plate, and use a height gauge to see if the neck in fact is distorted and needs a reset. And if it's a minor distortion, we can probably heat straighten it. If it's a major distortion, then I'll probably have to pull it out with steam and then reset it so that it's parallel and then we'll just continue to use it with a lower tension strings. Now I haven't had this off yet, the truss rod cover, which is a plexiglass type cover, to see how good or how bad those truss rod ends are. But we'll take it off when we do our disassembly video, which will be the next one, and I'll make some comments on what I find inside that truss rod cavity. Okay, so that's basically, well, I guess we'll go around to the back before I sign off. And of course we'll be replacing things like these strap pegs. One of the cool things about Rickenbackers is that a lot of the parts are still available new, made from the original tooling. And that includes the pickup covers, things like these strap pegs, and some other small parts that might be a little bit difficult to find if they weren't still made. Now if we look at the back of this, look at the reflection of my hand. It's in pretty good shape. Some of these things look like a world war was conducted on the back. There's a few chips here, probably buckle rash kind of a thing, and the ones that have gone through into maple have been touched up with what looks like magic marker. But all of this is going to clean up really, really nicely. This will look like a mirror when it's finished. So in the end, we're going to have a bass that not only performs well as this one does, but looks like an original bass would have coming out of the factory in '68. With the bonus that today's materials are a little better. I'll be using a better quality clear coat on it. I'll be spending a lot more time getting all the little fine details right, because I'm not a production factory, I'm a one-man shop. And in the end, this is going to be a real nice playable museum piece.